My spiritual path is very esoteric in the sense that I've evolved it to a place where I try not to give it too much form, to live in the moment and follow the guidance and the messages of each moment. But if you were to give it some form, the closest thing would be coming from the spiritual community that I lived in for almost 7 years and the lineage of gurus. This is like behind the scenes, what I see behind the camera here is a spread of the gurus. And this one right here had a very unique way of guiding people through the spiritual path. They all had their own way. I wanted to bring up Lahiri Mahashaya's right now. Whatever question people had of him, generally, his answer was do more Kriya. Do more Kriya, Kriya Yoga. That is the meditation practice that these gurus were teaching. I don't know for sure if Jesus was, but the other ones do. I have suspicions that Jesus did too. But Lahiri Mahashaya just whatever question about life, about problems, about how to solve this thing, about what's going on here, and can we predict the future, and how do I get over this emotion in myself, and how do I save this relationship? Do more Kriya Yoga. One of those things is a phrase that I commonly like to say, which is the answer is within. When we're meditating, we're creating space in order to see and hear messages. Whereas when we're busy in our daily life, we don't really have the space for those to come in. You ever notice you get great ideas when you're driving your car or in the shower, when you're in that more relaxed state? Because there's space in those moments for those messages to come through. So the first thing that Kriya Yoga gives you is that concept of the answers within. The next thing is, have you ever heard of the phrase, you can't solve a problem at the level that it's at? And the idea of the Kriya Yoga path is to help raise our consciousness and awareness to a greater understanding. So in a way, when you're sitting there in the problem and you're asking the guru, it's because you haven't found it within your own self. You haven't done the answers within, it's not there. But you're also sitting at a consciousness state where the answer cannot be revealed, because the answer needs to be at a different level of awareness and opening. And doing these meditation practices also invites your energy upwards, expands and opens your consciousness to create this greater understanding and tap into another level of wisdom that wasn't accessible when you weren't in that state. For all of us, when we're in kind of our daily life state and when we're affected by different things that are going on, that takes our state up and down. And I find that there's moments, whether it's through meditation practice or just somehow the state of consciousness and awareness that I'm in, that I get into an elevated state and different understanding and awareness comes through. And you can probably actually see this if you're watching all my videos closely. You can actually sometimes identify when I'm kind of speaking to you in my more human self, which I am right now, from the awareness that I've gathered when I've been in those states, and when I'm speaking, when I'm closer attuned to being in those states of feeling more of that connection with spirit. So both of those states come through the videos. And when we're meditating, we're often going into that state of that consciousness. So when we're operating in our daily life, we tend to have more conscious awareness of the material world. But whatever information, understanding we've gained from being in those altered states, that understanding doesn't disappear. We may not act within that. We may not feel that vibrationally. We may have different opinions when we're in a different state, but we don't forget what we learn when we've been in that state. So we won't forget any of that wisdom that comes through when we're doing our Kriya Yogas, when we're creating opening and space for us to tune into the greater awareness and consciousness. The third thing that I wanted to say about this is that we don't need to mentally know it all. So we think that we need to consciously understand all of these concepts. And basically what Lakiri is also saying is just meditate. The meditation will also naturally shift our state and our consciousness. And in a longer term, I was talking about this up down, but if you imagine that there's, kind of like this wave that's up down, but it actually goes like this. So we'll naturally start maintaining that higher level of awareness more consistently, and the dips don't go as far down as the dips initially might have. So we're living in that higher state of awareness, but we have just naturally changed. Now, also, when your consciousness shifts, there's a phrase in my book, Healing Happens, where it's like the new normal. And you forget even the sense of trauma or lack of understanding or pain that you've been in before, because you've now gone to a new state of comfort. And it's the same thing with our awareness. We might not even mentally remember the lessons that we've learned before because they've been fully integrated. They're very natural for us to perform and to act upon. And when, actually, I want to say this with Jesus, there's a lot of different understandings and beliefs about who Jesus was, what the messages are. One of the ones that I find fascinating, whether true or not from the time, is a great lesson. And I'm Jewish, right? And in Judaism, there's a lot of rules to it to help give us some structure and guidelines to follow. And also there were ways I feel that Jesus was noticing that the Jews were acting that really wasn't in alignment with our highest potential, whether or not they were following those rules. But when we rely on those rules to guide us, we're not necessarily in a natural consciousness state to just naturally do those things. So what he wanted to do was take people to another state where you don't need those rules to tell you how to act, but that your consciousness state is in another level while you're naturally act in that way. So it's like the rules that are taught in Judaism. I don't know if you know this, but I grew up going to a Jewish day school from kindergarten to 8th grade. And then I decided to go to a public high school so I could be in some smarty pants program. But when I was there was a class called rabbinics that I got to take for the last 2 years that I was there. It was my favorite class that I took because it was all about morals. It was the rabbi's interpretations of the laws. It was how to live in a higher state and be a better person. But these are things that we don't necessarily want to be influenced from the outside. These are things that we naturally want to be who we are. And that comes because we're in a state of consciousness where that naturally happens. And again, doing that Kriya, doing that meditation practice will open up that space and that natural integration and awareness and state of being within yourself that promotes that opportunity. So whatever that question is, whatever that trauma is that's going on, whatever that thing that you're trying to figure out that's going over and over in your mind, consider that maybe I don't need to mentally figure this out. The mind isn't really the tool anyways that actually helps us figure this out, but that you can actually relax into the presence of this moment and focus on tuning in meditatively and intuitively and doing the things in your life that uplift you, whether it's meditation or something else, so that you can create greater awareness, a greater state of being, and then tune into the greater truths through intuition instead of needing to mull your mind constantly. So you just create space, opening, and wait for the messages to come in that truly give you the answers that you need to live a higher vibing life. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Blessings.